let's get going. We'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Time now is 7:30 p.m. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge. This meeting of the this meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to Borough Council chambers unavailability and is in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this remote meeting was published in the Bergen Record, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall, and posted on the borough's website. The notice included the dial-in and login information necessary for public participation and access to this meeting remotely. Copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included the dial-in and login information. During the public comment period of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raise hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by the last four digits of your telephone number. You may mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone keypad. You must state your name and address clearly prior to making a public comment. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Steinle to call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Here.
Mr. Caslin?
Here.
Ms. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer?
Here.
Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Kaniga?
Here.
Councilman Glass?
Here.
Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
And Mr. Bastide is absent at the moment. Also present, Mr. Behrens, our board planner, Mr. Costa, our board engineer, and Mr. Depkin, our zoning officer.
Okay, thank you. One housekeeping item, we're going to set a curfew tonight for 10:15. Hopefully we'll won't need that much time, but that will be tonight's curfew. Our first agenda item this evening is under approval of minutes. We have a draft set of minutes for our meeting of September 25, 2024. Draft set was circulated to the board for review prior to this evening's meeting. Open it to the board for comment or questions on minutes of September 25.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
on the September 25 minutes, I did not get to review them.
Okay.
So I have no comments one way or the other.
Any other members of the board with comments on the minutes for September 25? Okay, there being none, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So made.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boland.
Oh, Ms. Boland, I believe, was absent that meeting on the 25th.
I don't think so.
I'll second.
Yeah, they have the minutes show Ms. Boland is absent.
Okay.
Okay,
Right,
but
so
I
I
think
have
we
a
have
second from Mr. Gibbons.
Mr. Gibbons. Okay,
We can do a voice vote, but the mayor, Mr. Caslin, Ms. Boland, and Mr. Bastide were absent.
okay. So all those eligible to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. Thank you. Our next item under approval of minutes is minutes from our meeting of October 9th, 2024. Drafts of the minutes were circulated for review by the board prior to this evening's meeting. Open it to the board for comment or questions on the draft.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did review that set of minutes. And there is one correction needed, I believe. That's on the Happy Dog, on page 2 of the minutes. You have the Happy Dog lot and block, I believe, has to be corrected. I believe the proper designation is block 409, lot 3. And I even went back and checked the survey, and the 409 lot 3 is correct. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions on the draft for October 9th? Okay, with Mr. Merman's one modification, I'll look for a motion on the minutes, please.
So moved.
I think I have a first, Mr. Cray, and a second, Mr. Gibbons.
All right, we can do a voice vote. The mayor, Mr. Caslin, and the councilman were excused for that meeting.
Okay, so those eligible to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
And one abstention from Mr. Knigo.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving along, our next agenda item this evening is under memorializations. Applicant is Happy Doggy LLC. Property is 47 River Edge Road, block 409. Draft of the memorial resolution was circulated prior to this evening's meeting for the board's review. Open it to the board for comments or questions on the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I looked at that and I think Marina will discuss that.
Yes, there was one edit on the first page. In the second whereas clause, I had the incorrect address. It should be 47 River Edge Road. So change that.
Okay. Other comments, questions on the draft resolution? Okay, there being none, I'll look for a motion to approve with that one modification.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons.
All right, I'll only call those eligible to vote. Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Knigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Our next agenda item, excuse me, this evening is under completeness review. Our first application, the applicant is Evergreen Medical Group PC. Property address is 887 Kindercamack Road. This is block 206, lot 5.03. In a 2023 resolution, the applicant agreed to comply with Borough Code's requirements for signage or seek additional approvals from this board. The applicant has submitted an application for approval of a proposed monument sign at the front of its building. Mr. Barnes. Actually, sorry, Ms. Steinle. I'm going to start with you.
All right, yes, although this is not, does not impact the completeness, the applicant's attorney did provide the proofs. And I reviewed them and they were sufficient for the board to have jurisdiction over the application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barnes.
Sure. Good evening. And so the application is solely for the installation of a freestanding monument sign. The applicant submitted a plan which indicates the proposed location and setbacks of the sign. They've also submitted details for the sign, so I believe the board has information sufficient to proceed with the application.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Depkin.
Hello, everyone. I'm okay with this application.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Questions from the board as to completeness? There being none, I'll look for a motion to deem the application complete.
So moved.
I think I have first, Mr. Knigo, may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
All right, I'll do the roll call. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Knigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass.
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Our next, excuse me, applicant for completeness review, the applicant is Quality Home Developers LLC. Property is 312 Webb Avenue, block 302, lot 12. Application seeking approval of a proposed subdivision of a one lot into two lots. Ms. Steinle.
Yes, so this one is the application that's coming back for reconsideration, and the applicant renoticed for this hearing. And I reviewed the proofs submitted by the applicant's attorney and found them to be sufficient for the board to hear the application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barron's.
Sure. So where we left off with this applicant was that the board needed additional information from a completeness perspective in order to vote favorably on the conforming subdivision. The applicant has provided a plan which indicates, I believe they're conceptual, but they can clarify building footprints. Basically, they show how the properties will be developed, including stormwater management, retaining wall, et cetera. So I believe they've spelled out the information that had been missing. So I think we could deem the application complete at this point.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Depkin?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Behrens.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Costa?
They can certainly go forward, definitely.
Okay. Any other questions as to completeness? Okay, there being none, I'll look for a motion to deem the application complete.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Ms. Boland.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
yes.
Mr. Merman,
yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass.
Yeah.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Our third item under completeness review this evening, the applicant is Bedros and Lisa Yasayan. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Property is 823 Bogart Road. This is block 118, lot 10. Application seeking approval for the installation of a outdoor deck, seeking coverage relief. Ms. Steinle.
Yes, thank you. Prior to the meeting, I reviewed the proofs submitted by the applicant and found them to be sufficient for the board to have jurisdiction over the application tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barron's?
As you stated, Mr. Chairman, the application is solely for the addition of a rear unenclosed deck. The applicant submitted a property survey, a plan, as well as elevations of the deck and site photos. So I believe the board has enough to proceed this evening.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Depkin?
Yes, this one's a little bit unusual. This was a transition period for the ordinance amendments, which I didn't have, I guess, at the time that I did the review. We had some email conversations in regards to what was required and what they thought would be compliant. So I redid the zoning review. I revised it yesterday. Didn't have time to get it out, but we can discuss that during the application. So I feel it's deemed ready to go.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Costa?
Again, I concur. Basically, it goes back to coverage on this one, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're
Questions from the board as to completeness? Okay, there being none, I'll look for a motion to deem the application complete.
Well moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cray.
Back
Is there a second?
Back.
Mr. Kanigo, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland.
I need to abstain. I'm within 200
Oh.
feet of the property.
Okay,
Hello, neighbors.
Mr. Merman,
yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass.
Yep.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move now into our new business section of the agenda this evening. Our first application is Evergreen Medical Group PC. Property is 887 Kinderkamack Road. This is block 206, lot 5.03. Application seeking approval for the installation of a monument sign. I do believe we have the applicant's counsel with us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Barrett.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thomas J. Barrett for the applicant. I may regret this later on, but we actually are also seeking approval for two existing signs. One is on the door, the entrance door, and one is on the window that faces Kindercamack Road. But I don't want a question to come up later on, but that was included in my letter. They are very small in size. We can, is Mr. Levy with us? I can't see down my screen that far. Is Ms. Steinle, is there a Sasan Levy with us?
I do not see that name, no.
All right, well, we submitted the sketches. I do have Ms. Osorio, who is the manager for Evergreen. And this is the property it's between the Dunkin' Donuts and the funeral home. And as was recited, approval was given back in 2023 for this medical practice to open in this location, and they will be opening on Monday. Obviously, it takes a while to outfit the premises. So if I may, as I said, we submitted the monument sign, which is located 18 feet 3 inches from the curb. The reason it's so far back is that back in 1989, when the property was developed, the county required the then applicant, Mr. Bedrosian, to grant them a right of way. So their property line ends sooner than those to the north, at least to the south. But in any event, so we placed it beyond the property line, obviously not in the county's right of way. And this, as the sketch shows, it's one-sided, it's 5 by 4, it's 20 square feet. And perhaps if we could have Ms. Osorio sworn in, just to provide a little testimony regarding the monument sign.
All right, and she'll just have to turn on your camera and unmute.
Hello.
There we go.
All right, if you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Gina Osorio, O, S as in Sam, O-R-I-O. And you want my home address?
Home or business address is fine.
Okay, 44 Lockwood Place in Clifton.
Thank you.
So Ms. Osorio, if you could just tell the board why, in your opinion, the practice needs the monument sign that we're proposing?
So for the past year, while we've been doing construction, we've experienced people having difficulty finding our location because there's no indication as to Evergreen Medical anywhere. Other than now that we have the decals up, but there's no sign where they can find us. So I'm afraid that we're gonna have the same problem with patients come Monday. And we're afraid that they might possibly stop short and cause an accident. Kindercamack is a very busy street. So we just want something that is going to identify where we are to make it easier to get into the building.
Thank you. And based on your own observations, there's a monument sign just to the south at the funeral home.
Yes.
And there are multiple others along Kindercamack Road?
Yes, there are.
Okay. And then the decals that you spoke about, one of them is 3 feet 2 inches high by 2 feet 4 inches. So approximately 7.4 square feet.
Correct.
And that's on the window. And then the decal on the door is 1 foot 3 inches wide by 1 foot 6 inches high.
Yes.
And it's just a white vinyl decal, just with the name of the practice. Is that correct?
The name of the practice and the logo.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
So members of the board, so we need also a variance from the requirement of the ordinance, which limits signage to 20 square feet. So we're looking at approximately a total of 29 square feet dispersed amongst the three signs. In addition, the one that's on the window, that also requires a variance. The ordinance doesn't permit that. But I think, again, anybody who's driven by, I didn't even know those decals were there. It's right down the street from my office. And so the monument sign is really quite important for the safety reasons that that have been pointed out. And I think we can all recognize that over the years, there have been multiple monument signs approved because of the nature of Kindercamack Road. And we would ask for your kind consideration of this application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barron. We go to our professionals at this point. Mr. Barons, I'll start with you.
Sure. Good evening. Just to start off, regarding the window decals, I'll defer to Mr. Depkin, but I know there's a provision in the ordinance that talks about allowing window decals in certain situations. So whether or not these conform, I guess, remains a question. I know you're requesting the variance relief, but again, I'll defer to Mr. Depkin, or I could review, what it says if that becomes a question. I think just to expedite the conversation, I'll share the screen of first the plan where the sign is going. Bear with me. So board members, public can see. You have the property, the building's here. Kindercamack, the bottom of the page, and the sign is oriented, parallel to Kindercamack Road, with, as the exhibit indicates, 18 feet 3 inches from the curb, but about 1 foot from the property line. I'm going to stop sharing and then show the sign details. Bear with me. One tab. Almost there. And then we have the details of the sign. Sorry, I'm trying to enlarge it so you can see it. As Mr. Barrett stated, the sign is 5 feet high by 4 feet wide, 20 square feet. It is of the illuminated cabinet variety. And that's about it. So my observations are this with respect to the sign. Obviously the borough does not permit freestanding signs, hence they are here requesting variance relief. I would offer that there are if the board were so inclined to allow a freestanding sign, there are a variety of styles in that vicinity, and the applicant provides a depiction of one in the vicinity of the site for BCB Bank. There are others, and I'll point to the funeral home and a few others across the street. So it's a question of style. We don't permit them at all. There's a variety of styles. I would say dimensionally, this one seems to be on par with the other ones are there. And again, it's an illuminated cabinet. I'm tongue-tied tonight. The one other observation is that the sign is oriented parallel to Kindercamack, where all those other signs are perpendicular. So if the issue is visibility and to alert passersby, where the facility is, I offer I question if that's a better alternative. I'll defer to the applicant. And then finally, in providing a justification for the freestanding sign, maybe to hear from the applicant why a wall sign wouldn't suffice, I think would help the board understand. So those two questions. One being whether or not the reorientation makes sense, and to give us an understanding, just help us understand why this is better than a wall sign. It's not a gotcha, but maybe consider how far back the building is set back, if there are
that's one of the reasons why it's parallel rather than perpendicular, is because if you look at the building to the south of the walkway, it extends further towards Kindercamack. And it would block, if the sign were perpendicular, it would block it from those traveling north. Whereas we thought that the parallel sign would be visible to both travelers heading north and south.
So that's the preferred orientation and you've thought about it.
Because, yes, because of that reason, because of the location of the south side of the building.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Behrens. Mr. Deepkin. You're on mute.
Sorry, keep on doing that. I tend to agree with Mr. Behrens in regards to the perpendicular location. It would be something that you would be seeing as you drive south more than going north. But that's certainly the applicant's decision. In regards to the only concern I have is the looms or the wattage, or what type of interior lighting. Is it LED lights? They tend to be a lot brighter. Just wondering whether there's a dimmability to the lighting of the sign if necessary.
Mrs. Soria, do you know?
I'm not sure if he indicated what kind of bulbs he would be using.
But we can, certainly if the board sees fit to approve, whatever the board desires in terms of
Right.
dimmability or what have you, we'll provide for that.
Exactly.
What I've seen in the past is with these LED lights, that if the board does approve it, that there's a review within 6 months or a year time to the extent of the brightness. I'll say the looms or whatever you can call them.
Yeah,
That's
we would
certainly
have-
acceptable.
Sure, we would have no problem with that.
That's no problem.
And as far as the window signs, that is something in the code that's prohibited, but it's approval by the zoning officer. And I really have no concerns with that signage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deepkin. Let me turn to, excuse me, let me turn to the board now for questions. Mr. Cray, may I start with you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I heard the complete answer about why a building mounted sign couldn't achieve the same purpose.
Mrs. Soria, did you study that with Mr. Levy, the sign man, as to locating a sign on the building itself?
We did not consider that, no.
Is it something that you might consider? I mean, the building mounted sign is not prohibited, and if it can achieve the same purpose, we'd be in compliance with the code.
I would have to speak to the owners to see if that's something they would want. I know that at one point they did discuss it, but I think that where they wanted to place it, it would be covered by a tree that's there. And they thought it wouldn't be visible enough.
Yeah, I mean, trees can be trimmed, right? I guess the other question I have, the door and the window mounted sign, which I don't have any real heartache about, but obviously that's not for traffic recognition.
Right.
The purpose there is branding, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Cray. Ms. Boland.
I also would have the same question as far as being on the building. I know there are other monument signs. I typically am against them if we can reduce any and not add to them. But if there is a reason that it cannot be on the building, or it is not visible on the building, this makes sense that you do need some sort of recognition.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibbons.
No, I don't, I'm looking at the Google Maps here and it does look like a challenging building for this. There's a large tree in front. And when it has leaves, it looks like it could be difficult to see if it was on the top of the building. So definitely a challenging spot, I guess, with the, with the greenery that's on the property. So no other questions, just an observation.
I would
Excuse
just,
me.
just offer to that point, Mr. Chairman, that if it were to be placed on a certain portion of the building, it might actually trigger another variance because we only allow it up to a certain point of the building. So the ordinance prescribes how high it can be, but if it were to be placed at the top of the building, for instance, above trees or whatever, that may trigger another variance, just for the board's information.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
No, I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Councilman?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Pfeffer?
Thank you. I just have a question about the illumination of the sign. How late do you expect your business to be open each day? And is it possible that the illumination of the sign can be turned off after business hours?
Yes, so the latest we would be open to what we've discussed hour-wise is probably 7 o'clock, 7:30. And we did plan on turning it off once the last person is out the building.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Kenigo?
Thank you. Mr. Pfeffer just asked one of my questions, so thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. To me, it looks like the orientation is wrong. To effectuate the people seeing your sign, I think you got to turn it the other way, but that's up to you. I have a question for our professionals. Why are monument signs not allowed? What's the purpose behind the ordinance, and should we be considering that purpose?
Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that on the fly. So as far as I understand, it's been a provision, at least as long as I've been aware. So I don't know when the prohibition exactly came into place. As far as why, I've heard explanation, it all depends on the circumstance, but that you wouldn't impact driver visibility, you wouldn't, aesthetically, people, it's subjective to some extent, right? Whether or not they add clutter to the front of a property or not. And certainly that there be appropriate illumination are the reasons that I could think of off the top of my head. That's what I'm going with.
Okay, no, I mean, look, that's reasonable, and it sounds like maybe a past council, just somebody on it didn't like the idea of monument signs. So like, just looking at this application, I can't really understand what the big deal is. And I personally certainly prefer them to a big old sign on a building. When I see the signs up on a building, I think of like a city, and even though we're not far from the city, we try to distinguish ourselves. So that's it. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenigo. Mr. Merman?
I have a couple of questions. Is Evergreen Medical the only commercial tenant in this building?
No, there's a law firm there. They've been there for 20 years, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be Sunshine Atkins. Now it's Atkins and
Yeah,
four other
okay.
names.
Yeah, okay. So Atkins is there. Okay. Is it safe to say that the other commercial tenant does not require any signage identification for his business externally?
All I can tell you is they've been there, as I say, for 20 or 25 years, and they've never had a sign.
Okay. But the major, if I recall, when you were before the test, the major portion of this building is for Evergreen Medical. Is that correct? Okay.
Right, the first and second floor. The law firm's up on the third floor.
Okay. So from a sign standpoint, basically, it's really only Evergreen that we're looking at, and that probably needs it from your standpoint. I will make a correction to some of the testimony. If you look at your sign detail, you will see LED lamps,
Okay.
LED lights. Okay. All right.
So as I say, we have no problem getting a dimmer put in if it turns out they're too bright.
Well, I just wanted to be a matter of record because there was some concerns. All right. Personally, I like your window sign, and that's there now, and I like the vinyl overlay, the sign on the door, which I think both are very, very practical. However, personally, I am against monument signs, having been a board member for a while. And my own personal opinion is that the monument sign and the other signage that you're proposing, the monument sign starts approaching what I call sign pollution. That's my personal opinion. So personally, I'm against the monument sign, but for the other two that you have. And I will also point out that if you look at the building, mounted on the building is very large letters, is the street address. So if somebody is awake, they will see the house number or the street number on the building itself.
Mr. Merman, where is that? Because I have Google Earth up.
That's up towards the left side, if I recall.
Because I don't
I
see,
remember
I have a head-on look here, and
Well-
I don't see any number.
It's,
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not there. That's why I just asked you where it was.
I have sat across the street, looked at this frontage, and I can see it. It's got just the house number, and it's roughly 2'6" high by maybe 3 foot wide.
It's in the sign exhibit, Mr. Barrett. If you look at the left-hand
Oh,
picture in your sign
thank you.
exhibit.
I have Google Maps up right now, and
Yeah.
it's clear. It's to the left of the big windows, the tall windows.
should be.
Oh, I see it. All right. Yeah, mine. Oh, mine is covered by the tree. That's why. The Google Earth that I'm looking at, it's got it covered up, I guess. But I see what you're talking about. I see it now.
Yep. And there's no reason why you couldn't trim a foot or so off the top of that tree to make it even clearer. So,
Well,
so
again,
I-
so here,
I'm-
but here we are chopping down trees when I thought we wanted trees. It's-
well, yes, we do want trees, but there's no reason why you can't prune the top of them so that your sign is more visible if you so desire. If that's your concern about people recognizing the building as they travel Kinderkamak Road. So that kind of negates the need for the monument sign in my estimation. And as I said before, I like the signage that you have there, including the numerals, and I would be in favor of those, but I would oppose anything with a monument sign. That's my position.
Okay, well, anyone's on the building, as Mr. Burns pointed out. I believe one of the prohibitions in the ordinance is it can't be higher than 18 feet above grade. That's just off the top of my head. I could be wrong. And it certainly appears that it would be in order to be above the trees.
Well, it is pre-existing, just as the pre-existence of the other monument signs that you point out.
No, they were approved. They've been approved over the years. River Edge Diner for one. That's just one example.
I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that there are existing ones. It's just that I don't see the need for one in this case.
Okay.
That's it. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. I just have one question for Mr. Barrett, for the applicant. Is the intention to keep the landscaped area where this sign's being proposed to be located? Looks like it's going into what's currently a landscaped area in the front. There's flowers and other things. How is that going to interact with the sign?
I think it's actually to the right of that area. Again,
Okay.
if the Google Earth I'm looking at is accurate, you have the walkway. And then the landscaped area is to the right and to the left of the walkway. And this is to the right of that. There's a space there between the walkway and the proposed sign. And I think that's the existing, because I believe that's slightly graded there.
Yeah.
So I believe it's to the right of it.
Okay. Okay,
And certainly if the board, again, sees fit to approve it, they can say that it has to be to the right of that existing landscaping.
okay, understood. And I just so happened to visit the premises today, and I noticed that the Atkins firm has a sign on the front door as well, next on the glass door next to the evergreen sign.
Oh, okay.
So I have no further questions at this point. So we'll open it to the public for comment.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Ms. Paulin. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstained? All right, this time we are now open to the public for comment on this application. Again, this is the Evergreen Medical Group monument sign application. Anybody wishing to be heard? Please raise your hand on Zoom. And we ask that comments be limited just to this application only, and comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person.
All right, there are some members of the public present, so if you're interested in commenting on this application, please raise your hand. Nope, doesn't look like anybody.
I'll look for a motion to close to the public.
so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, we are now, excuse me, closed for public comment on this application. Further questions or comments from the board? Okay, this time I will look for a motion on the application.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move to approve the application subject to the conditions that have been discussed and agreed upon this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Pfeffer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend that motion. If I can at this point.
Finally, procedure.
I mean, Mr. Merman can ask for an amendment, and if Mr. Pfeffer agrees, then the motion could be amended, but if he doesn't agree, then we would have to take a vote on amending the motion.
Well,
Okay,
Miss Stenley, I believe Robert's rules, the motion needs a second. Until it's been seconded, it's not for consideration. Once it's been seconded,
Correct.
then amendment could be made without objection if the maker of the motion was so inclined. If not, then it has to go to a vote.
That's correct. If the motion's not seconded, then the board could
Motion.
hear another motion.
Yes. So a motion has been made, it needs to be seconded. I'm going to second the motion.
okay, so we have Mr. Pfeffer's motion has now been seconded by the mayor.
So now it would
Now-
be appropriate according to Robert's rules for an amendment, a friendly amendment could be made. If it isn't friendly, then it has to go to a vote.
Mr. Merman.
Okay. My amendment is any references to the monument sign be deleted.
Okay, so Mr. Pfeffer, it's your motion. Do you consider this motion to be friendly? If you say no, it means you don't want it to be altered in this manner. And then it would go to a vote by the body to forcibly amend the motion.
Thank you. No, I do not consider that amendment to be a friendly amendment, so I cannot accept it.
Okay, so now the amended motion needs a second for the body to consider amending. If not, the amended motion fails.
I'll second.
Okay, now the amended motion has been moved and seconded. It is open for debate, discussion, and then a vote. But the maker of the motion has a right to speak to that motion. So, Mr. Merman, you have a right to speak to your amendment.
I believe I've already stated my objection that there is sufficient signage without the monument sign. And that it is, to me, not preferential and falls in my personal category of sign pollution. I've already stated all of those in my prior testimony.
Now the floor is open to positions that any member of the body wishes to make in for or against. Mr. Caslin, you would be as the chair. You would call on the individuals as you saw fit.
Okay, I think Mr. Kenigo has a statement.
Yes, listening to Mr. Merman is always educational, and after he spoke, I tend to agree with him. And I'll go a little further. The orientation of the sign bothers me because the orientation then takes away the purpose, which is to advertise the presence of the business to people who are heading to that business and are looking for the signage. So, and I tend to agree. And also looking at the sign is very nice, and the emblem itself is very nice. But I don't think it's going to help anybody see where the business is if you're driving. It's kind of confusing. I mean, not that it's confusing, but it's very packed in with a lot of information. There's the tree, and then there's the words and everything. So for those reasons, I also agree with Mr. Merman, and taking into consideration what he said about too much signage. I can understand that too. So I think these are considerations that we do need to make to keep our town looking as quaint as it always does, and even more so as we hopefully fix the Interconnect Board. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard on the amended motion? Okay. So, Ms. Nally, I imagine at this time we take a roll call vote on the amended motion.
Well, we're taking a roll call vote on whether to amend the motion. If that
Right.
passes, then there'd be a debate and vote on the motion as amended.
Yep,
So
so
first, we have to decide whether we want to amend or not.
so this vote is on, if you vote yes on this, it's to amend the motion. This is not the final determination on the application, okay? Mr. Mayor,
I abstain.
Mr. Caslin,
No.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
No.
Mr. Cray,
No.
Mr. Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass,
So if I understand, there's two things. One is our ordinance does not permit this. And the other is there are viable options to this. So I vote yes.
and Mr. Gibbons.
No.
So the vote is tied.
Miss Marina, I'm going to change my vote.
Okay,
I agree that we do have a question of sign pollution, but I also feel that our businesses, do sometimes have a difficulty. I've gone to that building and driven right by it because though this markings for the numbers are very large, at different times of the year, they're difficult to see, especially in the middle of the summer. So I am going to vote no to the amendment.
okay.
So
All right,
now-
so
go
the
ahead.
motion to amend the motion failed.
Failed.
Now, Mr. Pfeffer's original motion to approve the application with conditions, it still stands, and the mayor has seconded that motion. we can take a vote on Mr. Pfeffer's motion to approve with conditions.
What are the conditions specifically, please?
So the conditions that I have are that the applicant will comply with the board's recommendation that the LED lights in the sign be reviewed within 6 months by the board planner and zoning officer, and that a dimmer switch be installed if necessary. And then that the applicant agreed to that the sign will be turned off after business hours, or at the end of the business hours, which is between 7 and 7:30 p.m.
Okay, just to clarify the dimmer switch thing, I think what we're trying to do is to limit the lumens of the signage, and that is something that is probably beyond us. So the experts would have to tell us what the limitation of lumens should reasonably be. I don't think we actually meant a physical dimmer switch that we turn. So we should make some notation about when we get some expert advice on it, whatever the limitation of lumens reasonably for, businesses is, because we don't want a super bright sign that all of a sudden is
Right.
blinding.
Okay.
So
Understood. Yep. And I think one other condition was that the monument sign would be installed to the right of existing landscaping on the property.
Correct.
thank you.
All right, so that is the motion. It was seconded. If there's no other questions, I'll take the roll call vote. All right, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
No.
Mr. Merman,
No,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kanigo,
No,
Councilman Glass.
Again, if I understand this correctly, it's not in compliance with our ordinance. And there are viable alternatives to allow them to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish and comply with our ordinance. So I'm sorry, I vote no.
All right, Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
hey, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate your consideration.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Next item on our agenda this evening under new business is Quality Home Developers LLC. The property is 312 Webb Avenue. This is block 302, lot 12. Application seeking a proposed subdivision of 1 lot to 2. So the applicant, I know I saw the engineers here.
Ms.
Mr.
Finley, I just want to make sure for Councilman Glass and myself, this is not considered a D variance, correct?
Correct, there are no variances
No.
proposed on this application.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Thomas J. Barrett for the applicant. And if I could just tell Ms. Osorio, you can leave now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You as well.
Sorry, Mr. Barrett, didn't know you were working a doubleheader tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Floor is yours, Mr. Barrett.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to call upon our engineer, Mr. McClellan, to go over the changes that have been made since we last appeared, I believe it was on September 25th, at which time we had requested certain waivers from provisions of the ordinance as to information that was to be provided. So I'd just like him to go over all of the additional information, and perhaps then we can also comment upon Mr. Costa's review letter, the most recent of which arrived at about 5 o'clock tonight.
And just for the record, Mr. McClellan was previously sworn and qualified and is still under oath tonight.
So, Mr. McClellan, perhaps if you were to share your screen, you could show the board the changes that you made to the plans.
Will do. 1 second.
I would just like to interrupt one more time. Ms. Stinley, I was not here for that. I did not review the video. Am I permitted to continue?
So this is a unique situation where the application was previously presented and denied due to some missing information. The applicant requested reconsideration at the last board meeting on October 9th. The board authorized the reconsideration, and now the applicant is presenting the new information, and all the members present can participate in the rehearing.
Thank you for that clarification.
Did everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just brief recap. It's 312 Webb Avenue. It's a corner lot on Webb Avenue and 6th Avenue. It's a 15,000 square foot lot, and we're looking to subdivide it into 2 equal pieces at 7,500 square feet apiece. Everything about both lots will be fully conforming, and the removal of the existing house will eliminate an existing nonconformity as far as the front yard on 6th Avenue, where it's 21.6 feet, where it's supposed to be 30 feet. And you can just see here, this is the blue lines is the existing lot, 100 by 150. And this red line here is the subdivision line to divide it into 2 equal pieces. What we,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, could this be marked as exhibit A1? And could you just identify the date of the most recent revision?
Sure. So it's the plan is minor subdivision, dated July 22nd, 2024, last revised October 3rd, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
What we didn't have and what we requested for a waiver last time was for structures within 200 feet and drainage pipes within 200 feet. Based on my field presence and using Google Earth, because we can't survey everybody's property. You can see here, I placed all the houses within 200 feet on the property. This shaded here, lot 12, that's the subject property. This dotted line that goes around is 200 feet. And you can see in blue all the existing structures. And then if I zoom in, you have all the drainage pipes and inlets. There's 2 here on the other side of Webb, another 2 as you go past our property, and then they weren't within 200 feet, but I put the drainage structures that were on 7th Avenue as well. That's the only change, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Well, you and I did have the opportunity to review the revision 2 of Mr. Costa's report. And just looking here for the, right, he did ask for confirmation that there will not be either individual water supply or sewage disposal. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be using town water and town sewer. There won't be septic systems or wells.
Thank you. And in terms of recess and requiring sidewalks, we're seeking a waiver. Could you describe the neighborhood based on your visits and?
Yeah, so just in the area, 6th and Webb, there are no sidewalks currently. So it basically would just be sidewalks in front of our property, not connecting to anything. So that's why we're asking for a waiver for sidewalks.
And then they did have some further requests, though. They're looking for trench detail for the proposed sanitary sewer and including backfill and pipe material. You can provide that?
I can.
All right, and also specifying the type of connection that would be made to the existing sanitary sewer?
Yes, all that will be included on the revised site plan. I mean, you want me to bring up the site plan now or?
All right, we'll finish the letter and then, yeah, we can address it.
Sure.
And then also a road restoration detail, which was further addressed in the letter of late this afternoon.
That I can provide as well.
And there was a request to locate the percolation tests on the site plan itself.
Yeah, so I did one kind of in the center of the property, but if it's required, we can do an additional one.
Yeah, it says that they recommend that it be conducted at the location of each stormwater system. So would that require 2 more then, or just 1 more?
Well, if I bring up my site plan, if you want to mark this, or this was submitted to the town as well.
I'll just mark it as exhibit A2, and if you could just provide the most recent date.
Sure. So it's a site plan, July 22nd, 2024, last revised October 17th, 2024. So we did the test hole right in the middle of the 2 lots, which is in the vicinity of this drainage here. In my opinion, I don't think we should do 3 different ones. If we did, I would just move these chambers to the back, and then we'll do an additional one in the front. So we can add one additional percolation test.
And then also we're advised that structural calculations are required for the retaining walls if they're in excess of 4 feet in height, which includes the buried block. So I understand above grade, they're only 4 feet, but below grade, there would be additional height.
Yeah, so as you see on my plan here, I have proposed keystone wall max 4 feet high to be designed by others, so structural calculations will have to be provided.
I understand, okay. And that, of course, if the board sees fit, could be a condition of the approval,
Yes.
similar to the additional percolation test, et cetera. And then in this afternoon's letter, Mr. Costa says that the curbs along Webb need to be replaced. Are you familiar with their condition or not?
I don't remember looking when I was out of the site with the condition.
So I assume Mr. Costa can advise us. I assume they need replacing. I'm sure he wouldn't put it in just for purpose of putting something in. And then also he spoke about, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the updated letter.
I have not, no.
All right, so it's in the ordinance, it basically says that if you're going to dig up 6th Avenue, then milling and restoration will be required if the trenches for the proposed utility connections are within 50 feet on center. Will ours be within 50 feet on center, I guess is the question.
50 feet, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the revised letter to see how it's worded.
Okay.
It's the one that came later today?
Yeah, I sent it over to you before. It's on, it's under miscellaneous comments. Not sure what page that is.
Yeah, I mean, if it falls under that, then we'll comply.
Okay, very good. Anything further, Mr. McCall?
No, I know that we went the board want to see individual site plans, so I have that here. As you can see, it's basically the same drawings of subdivision plan. This is the red subdivision line. And then the proposed dwellings are in red as well. You have the proposed 12.01, which is the one that becomes a normal lot fronting on 6th Avenue. That's 2-car garage and a front-loading driveway. And then we have lot 12.02, which is the corner lot, and the garage is off of Webb Avenue. And everything is conforming. It conforms with all the bulk table. As I mentioned, the subdivision is fully conforming as far as all those requirements. And both of the proposed lots will be conforming in front, side, combined side, rear, building height, building coverage, impervious coverage, and total improved coverage.
Thank you. Nothing further of Mr. McClellan.
Okay, let me turn to our professionals at this time. Mr. Depkin, we'll start with you.
Nothing, Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Behrens?
Sure, just a couple of quick points of clarification. So I guess I'll direct this question to Mr. Barrett or whoever can answer it. Is this plan intended to be conceptual, or this is the plan that's going to be submitted to the building department?
This would be the plan. I put a lot of time into this, so I figured it would be easy just to do it once. So this would be the plan to be submitted to the building department.
Okay, understandable. I just wanted to note that with respect to lot 12.02, which is the one toward the bottom or the south, does not show a rear yard amenity as required. I think you have the coverage capacity to do that, but again, as a part of a recent ordinance change, we require that you include some sort of amenity so that some prospective homebuyer doesn't have to come back to the board seeking variance relief. Again, I think you're at about 30% coverage where 35% is allowed, so you should be able to put in a compliant patio, but I think as a condition, you could probably include that with your submission to the building department, assuming this moves forward.
Just for my education, do you just have to provide the coverage for it, or do you actually have to provide an amenity?
That's a fair question. So you're saying you've left the space so the prospective homeowner would have the discretion to design it according to their liking. I think that's a fair I'll defer to Mr. Debkin, but I think that's a fair interpretation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I left 5.3% for the rear.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Barron's second assessment that the allotment should be there, but it's up to the buyer if he wants to do a patio or a deck.
And I can add from the council's point of view, that was the intent from when the ordinance was changed.
Fair comment. Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
just quickly, if you look at my chart, I have improved coverage with a star, and that says excludes rear yard. So on lot 12.01, we're at 30%. At lot 12.02, we're at 29.5%. So we left at least 5% for the rear yard improvements.
Okay, good. And you have to be compliant on parking, height. It looks like you've done the calculation, so that would be reviewed at the building department phase. And I think you testified the last hearing that you've submitted for the new tree removal replacement permit. So I assume that's under review in the borough. Beyond that, I have no further questions. The subdivision itself is fully conforming. This plan depicts what is intended to be developed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Costa?
Chairman, okay, just a few things, maybe just the easiest one first. The only question I have is, this should really be the subdivision, because two things, under the MLUL, single family are exempt from a site plan, so it really shouldn't be considered a site plan. It should be the actual subdivision, and that's what the board should actually approve, would be this. And again, I understand the dwellings are probably conceptual, there's going to be some difference to them, but I guess it shows you pretty much what's going to happen. Also on this plan, there's soil moving calculations, and again, in front of the board has discretion to either approve it or deny it, but I think there should be testimony as to how much soil is being moved around. I think there's excess coming out, so you're gonna dig basements, you're gonna take it out, you're gonna move it off-site. Which direction, how many trucks, what time of day, so on and so forth. But if you're not ready for that, then you're gonna have to come back again because of the amount of soil that you're actually moving off the site.
I do have soil moving calculations. For lot 12.01, we're removing 204 cubic yards.
Yeah, I don't know
Or-
if you actually submitted for a soil movement, if you actually did the paperwork, that I don't know, I don't have that.
I don't believe we did, Mr. Costa. I don't believe any formal application was submitted.
Okay.
We thought that providing it on the plan might be sufficient
I think
with
there's
all,
an
with all
actual,
the calculations.
I think there's an actual permit that you gotta fill out. All right, so then going back to this, is this the actual subdivision then?
They
Well, we have two
submitted,
plans.
Exhibit A1 was the subdivision plan, I believe.
But again, this isn't a site plan. They're single family homes, it's exempt from site plan, so it shouldn't really be titled site plan, it's actually the subdivision, if this is what they're intending to build, this drainage, this location, did drainage calculations for this.
We
the
can
amount of
amend the
impervious-
title of it. That's not a problem.
Okay, so then this will be that, okay. As far as the actual soil, we weren't present when that was done. I believe it's a K1 or a K2, if I'm not mistaken, which is, soil characteristics are not great as far as infiltration, so depending on where the new ones are, I'd like our office to be present during that. And then to make sure that this is actually gonna work. The other thing, as far as the roadway, Sixth is relatively new. So if you tear it up with all the improvements, obviously we'll want that fixed. My other recommendation would be once they submit all that information, if it is approved tonight, then I would recommend just not a full-blown developers agreement, but I think Brian used to call it a short developers agreement, just to make sure that all these improvements are done correctly and in accordance with the approved plan. But that would be it.
And Mr. Costa, if I could ask you a question? So can we,
Sure.
can we submit an application with the, as a condition of approval to submit an application that satisfies you for the soil movement?
Of course,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chairman, that would basically be it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Costa. Let me
Alright.
turn to the board now for questions. I'll start with Ms. Boland.
Oh, sorry, Miss Boland, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. My only question is the retaining wall going through the two lots as far as I guess maintenance is just at the property line? If something goes wrong, if there's any damage to the retaining walls?
Actually, I
believe-
think if I can I interject, Chairman, I apologize. I
Sure.
think our recommendation was to break it back so they act independently, just in case if one falls, it doesn't impact the other, and they're completely separate.
Okay,
And we'll comply with that.
I apologize for jumping in, Eileen. I know you're a better
No.
engineer than me.
I appreciate it. Nope, that was all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Boland. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, a couple of things. Mr. Costa, maybe I didn't understand you correctly, but I thought you said that there should be some testimony about soil movement. We do have flooding issues in town. So I didn't hear that testimony.
They have to they have to come back.
Okay. So, Mr. Costa, you're saying that basically, since they have to come back, we can't approve tonight?
No. So the application tonight is only for subdivision of the lot.
Okay.
This
let
is,
me-
there's no application for the soil moving permit tonight. There's no site plan application tonight. The applicant provided those details just to give extra information to the board to understand why the subdivision was happening.
That helps me, thank you. My next question,
I don't think that's 100%. The
Okay.
plan that's gonna get approved tonight is gonna show the drainage, it's gonna show the location of the driveways, it's gonna show the size of the houses, it's gonna show, that's what's getting approved. If they deviate from that, then they need to come back, but that, unless I'm mistaken, the board isn't just approving a line on a plan and thank you and come back and do whatever you want.
The
And
the testimony that was provided was that this is
Yes.
a subdivision application, that the houses that are, the single family homes that are going to be developed on the property are going to be fully conforming with the Borough Code. If it's not conforming in any aspect of the Borough Code, they have to come back. Is that correct, Mr. Barrett?
Yes,
So then the plan that shows the drainage as shown on the other plan that's gonna be retitled is just conceptual?
no, Mr. McClellan?
No,
this is-
this is, as far
this
as
is what we're
I'm
gonna
concerned,
do,
this
right.
plan is final.
So I think the confusion might be arising, as Mr. Costa has pointed out, the ordinance excludes single-family homes from site plan approval. So Mr. McClellan, in an attempt to keep all of the information together, did entitle the plan site plan, but we can call it the subdivision plan. And it has, as Mr. Costa has pointed out, has all of the drainage, has the location of the driveways, it has the utility connections, everything is there. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of semantics. We can just call that the subdivision plan, because this subdivision, if it's approved by the board, will be perfected by the filing of deeds, which need to be signed by the chairman and secretary of the board after they've been prepared. And I think that has to occur within 190 days of the board's approval, assuming they approve.
So this is my concern. As mayor, we have issues of flooding when when properties are regraded. And we have residents who are getting their homes, their backyards. One resident is under by about 6 to 8 inches on any given day. So hold on a second, please. Sorry, background noise. So it's my understanding, based on the testimony that I've heard, and I could have heard it wrong, that there is not simply going to be a removal of soil to accommodate a basement, but there's going to be regrading. And that's the part that I'm asking about right now. How is that regrading going to take place? And if you're not ready to testify, then I'm not ready to vote, because I need to know as an elected official that the nearby lots are not going to be flooded, and I'm going to get a phone call in a year and a half from a resident saying they put in these homes, they regraded it, and now my backyard or my front yard is getting flooded. So that's my first and foremost concern. I also have a concern about the request to waive the sidewalks. I know sidewalks are not there, but that doesn't mean that we don't want that. It's a public safety feature. I've walked those streets, to knock on people's doors during campaigns, and I realize how treacherous it can be in areas where there are no sidewalks. It's my hope that we might be able to, we do have residents currently now over by the high school, I believe, who are asking for us to put in sidewalks. So if the subdivision was to go through, I would expect sidewalks to be put in. I would not wish for that to be waived. For a public safety issue, again, as an elected official, it is my responsibility to be concerned about public safety. And I know that this will be non-contiguous because there will not be other sidewalks, but one way or another, we're hoping that we might be able to extend our sidewalks throughout the town to make it safe. And this council has made a commitment to that. Councilwoman Bastide was able to get us a grant to redo sidewalks near the junior high. And we are doing handicap curbs and everything else. So those are my two concerns. And if, and they would affect my vote. But I'd like to go back now to Ms. Stinley and Mr. Costa and Mr. Barrett. Is there going to be testimony? Is there going to be a regrading of the property? And if so, can testimony be provided tonight? Because without it, I could not vote yes.
Mr. McClellan.
Sure. So yes, I'll share my screen again. So as you can see, under existing conditions, the property slopes from 6th Avenue to west, and there's an existing house there with no drainage system, and in certain parts of the grade is very steep. With the addition of the houses, all the water that falls in those areas will be collected into our stormwater system. Additionally, the water that falls on the driveway on lot 12.01, that water will be collected and stored in our stormwater system. Driveway on lot 12.02 will be directed to Webb Avenue, and that the water that currently fell in this area and went onto adjacent property will now be directed to Webb Avenue. Additionally, we have inlets throughout this property. We have a swale along the side of here with an inlet. We have a
just to interrupt for a second, would you define swale for me?
Sure. So it's like a ditch. So see if I have anything here I can kind of relate it to. So let me zoom in. So this is a swale here, this blue line, right? So this grade in here is 98. This grade in here is 100, and here's 99. So this is 100. Right here would be 99.9. So you have two higher areas that slope down to a lower area that forms a channel where the water is directed to an inlet. So all the water that falls in the front here is collected in this swale and goes to this inlet right here. And same thing on the other side. You have a swale in between our property and lot 11, and that water is also collected in inlet. So we're collecting the roof water from all the homes. We're collecting the roof water. We're collecting the water from one driveway, and we're collecting the water from the swales, and we're putting it into our drainage system. So it's not running off the site like it is under existing conditions. Additionally, we're flattening the grade in the rear. You can see from here, it goes from 99 all the way down to 92. Now with the addition of the retaining wall, it goes from 98 down to 96. So it's a 2-foot drop in this area over about 35 feet or so, where under existing conditions, it's a 6-foot slope. So it levels off the property, gives the water that's not collected in the inlets more time to run across the grass and percolate into the ground. So those factors, the catching the roof water, catching the driveway runoff, catching some of the runoff up on the property with via swales, and flattening the rear of the property, we're lessening the amount of water that's going to come off the site.
Mr. Mayor, if I may give you a layman's definition, it's basically a shallow ditch.
Okay, a shallow ditch. Mr. Costa, based on that testimony, do you feel that this is an improvement in the current conditions? Something similar to what current conditions, or does this a detriment to the current conditions?
Well, again, Mayor, you're gonna, two things. You're gonna plateau the backyard. So now you have a steep slope, and now you're gonna plateau it, so you get a usable backyard. And to achieve that, you're building a 4-foot high wall in the rear portion of the property. So you're taking the excavation from the basement and then adding it to the rear portion of the property, building a retaining wall and then leveling it out to a 2-foot drop instead of from 98 to 92 instead of a 6-foot drop. You're putting, again, but it's all based on whether or not the soil can take it, based on, I'm not sure exactly where the boring was taken, but it's what was submitted. It's a 0.6 inch per hour infiltration rate, which is nothing. So, you know, if you go back to Ida, it was a 6-inch storm, 7-inch storm, in probably an hour. So if you have one of those storms, the system gets overwhelmed and everything is going to go towards that. If it doesn't perk into the ground, everything is being collected in the Coltech chambers in the rear portion of the property. The retaining wall is dry laid, so it allows water to go through it. That's how that works. So if it doesn't work, could it put more water into the people's backyards? Of course, and that's why they need to do the additional testing to make sure it works. This plan doesn't show it, but I think the other portion of this plan showed the drain. There's a pipe in the front of this, if I'm not mistaken.
So, Mr. Costa, in your professional opinion as the engineer, is this plan sufficient with the condition that the new borings may, if the borings hold out, and if the borings do not show that the drainage is not sufficient, what would you require of the applicant? And should that be part of our conditions for approval?
If the soil conditions do not allow this to work as designed, then they need to redesign it, obviously. Again, if there's storm sewer in front of this, if there's a pipe, you might be able to redirect some of that water into the municipal system, which would then have less impact on the neighbors in the rear. So you could look at that also, because their driveway, they're picking up with a trench drain for whatever reason. It's actually flowing, I guess, towards the garage, which, in my opinion, that creates another possible aggravation down the line if that fails. Then you're putting water into somebody's garage, where the grades are close enough where you could redirect it the opposite direction towards the street and redirect some of that water. Take the roof water, redirect it to the front, not to the rear. So there's certainly things you should do and can do. But again, if you don't have the information, you need to provide the information and find out exactly what it is before you can make an intelligent decision.
So, Mr. Costa, and Ms. Stinley, again, you need to help me. Based on these testimonies, based on your testimony, Mr. Costa, is this ready for a vote, or are there too many insufficient information for us to know that the adjacent properties are being protected from flooding? You don't know. Right now, you do not know. And the only way you can know is if you do the additional testing, first thing. Second thing is from Mr. Barrett, they didn't put in for a soil moving application, so the board can't vote on it. They would have to come back.
So, if I may, the application tonight is for a subdivision with no variances. The applicant has agreed to comply with all of the borough engineers' reports, comments, and has agreed to submit a soil moving permit when it gets to that point. At this time right now, that's not what the application is about. So, Ms. Stinley, you're saying it's not germane to the motion? Not for the motion for the subdivision. I know Mr. McClellan testified that these are the plans that they're going to be submitting for approval with the borough, but they also agreed that the plans can be revised based on the borough engineers' comment letters, and they're not necessary for the subdivision approval, in my opinion. Ms. Stinley, Mr. Costa, and Mr. Debkin, if
we find that the soil samples show that this plan is insufficient for proper water management, would then the building permit be denied? Or, in other words, is there if I vote yes tonight, is there a safeguard that will make sure that I'm not going to be getting phone calls from the neighbors saying their properties are flooded? And I can only know that if I know that Mr. Costa's review of the water management is binding. So that's what I guess I'm asking. If we approve tonight and that we find that this is insufficient water management, then would the building not commence?
I believe that the
That's
applicant,
considered, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
um,
you can go ahead, Mr. Depkin.
Okay, thank you. Any submission for building permits are predicated on prior approvals. The borough engineer needs to approve the site plan, soil moving application, and so forth. So it's all up to the borough engineer to evaluate what was presented and then go forward from that. When we get that approval, then we're required to release those permits, but not until then.
So, Ms. Dinley, am I correct in saying that there are safeguards and that I can trust that if I vote yes tonight, those safeguards would be honored?
Yes, that regardless of the testimony that was provided, the applicant would have to go through the process of getting borough engineer approval for the development of these lots. But to help support the board's decision, the applicant has already agreed to comply with the borough engineer's comments and recommendations and make the changes that have been described. And if the soil testing comes back saying that it's not good enough as it's designed today, then the applicant would have to revise their plans. And that would happen regardless of the testimony that was provided tonight.
And Ms. Dinley, you have that in your notes so that when we do move to a motion, that would be all recorded, correct?
Yes, I do. And I believe Mr. Barrett, unless he has a problem with that, I would include that in any resolution or motion.
So I feel comfortable with that issue. Mr. Barrett, Mr. McKinley, I'm looking, I feel very strongly about the sidewalks, and I'm wondering if you would withdraw that waiver. And I ask you to consider that. And that's all, and I thank you.
So I have to, Mr. Mayor, I have to call upon Mr. Michael, the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, Mr. Michael.
On that question.
Yeah.
So maybe, here we go.
All right, Mr. Michael, so you were previously sworn and you still remain under oath today.
Good evening, everyone.
So, David, the mayor is requesting that sidewalks be installed on the 6th Avenue and on Webb.
Yeah, we can comply with that. It's also a safety issue. It's not a
No
problem.
problem, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time. I know that was a little bit lengthy, but I really do appreciate that.
I would just say, Mayor, we've invested a lot of effort in putting the ADA compliant sidewalks in, so we would need that, of course.
Of course.
Councilman, while you're there, any further comments on the or questions for the applicant? Councilman?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is not, it's confusing. I don't have any questions or comments related to the subdivision, the application for the subdivision. But I do have a question, and it's just for consideration. It's almost rhetorical. The southern lot, the rear setback is shown on the plans from the proposed dwelling to be 25 feet. I believe that's what the ordinance requires. So I'm wondering, because of that, if there is in fact room for amenities in that backyard. But again, I don't think that's needs to be answered tonight. Because we're not evaluating the site plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Craig.
Yeah, just two questions and or comments. One, I found this to be very perplexing because I had understood that what we were looking at today was approving the subdivision or not. And any other concerns, issues, whether it be related to the soil permit or any other part of the design and execution of building the new properties out, would be subject to all of the engineering reviews and all of the building permits and all of the processes that anybody who's going to do that is going to be subject to. So I think we're getting very far afield on what we're supposed to be doing here tonight. And just as a general comment, this is the third or fourth subdivision that I've sat on in the last couple of years. And this is the first one that actually meets the requirements. Every other one, we've managed some semantic argument to say we can create a non-conforming lot and then we'll allow for variances. But that's not the way it works. You have to create the property, then you could give variances if the property was conforming. This is the first time we've taken a single property and subdivided it and had two conforming lots. So I don't really see any reasonable argument that says it shouldn't go forward. So that's what I gotta say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Mr. Gibbons.
My main concerns, as I had last time, is with water. I'm very concerned that the neighbor downstream, not sure which direction that is going to be getting water from this. Especially hearing that the soil, as of what we've heard, is not sufficient, or at least we don't think it's sufficient. So I hope that, if this goes through, that, more extreme measures are taken to make sure that the person downstream is not going to get flooded with water. Because I know the house will be sold and a homeowner will own it and it'll then become their problem. So I just want to make sure that that's going to be, I don't want to say overly done, but to, 1000% make sure that we're not creating more water problems in the town. As the mayor alluded to earlier, that we have all over. And I'm sure we're going to hear from some neighbors that are concerned about water as well. So those are my points.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Mr. Pfeffer.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say a lot of what Mr. Cray has already said, so I won't repeat that. I will say for the record that I think the majority, if not all of the board members, are concerned about the water issue. But given the fact that we are only voting on the subdivision application and that the rest of this site plan is not being voted on tonight and is going to be subject to intensive review and probably revision, and we're not voting on the site plan tonight, then I have no further questions or comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. Mr. Kanigo.
The problem with the water argument is that we're not going to know about the water problems until after all this is built up and the residents come to us and say there's a water problem. And I think we know in town there's a water problem. We've just spent, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, how much was it to fix that water problem down in on that paper road between
More than $1 million.
Yeah, so that's what we had to spend to help our residents who were literally underwater. I can't see, and by the way, I understand that what we're talking about is simply a line down the middle. That's all we're talking about today. Everything else, I fully understand that. But we don't live in a bubble, right? We know what we're talking about is eventually that 2 houses and 2 driveways and sidewalks are going to be put on this property. And we're going to try to manage water, but I don't know. As far as I can tell, the water situation all over has gotten worse lately. So we can't live in a vacuum when we're looking at this application. So that's my concern. But if all we're voting on is a line, I will say this, Mr. Mayor, I think your instincts are right, because I think once we vote the line in, this is an avalanche that doesn't stop. These houses get built, and 5 years from now, whoever's sitting on this board or on the council is going to hear from neighbors who are going to be begging for help. So that's my comment on this, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenigo. Mr. Merman.
Yeah. I don't see why we can't have a simple subdivision map plot made, where we simply take the parcel as it is and put the line in and make 2 approved lots without showing all the improvements. Just as, I don't know, Mr. Costa and Mr. Behrens, why can't we do that? Why can't we just subdivide this piece of land with the line
Because
down the
this, very simply, Mr. Merman, this board denied that to have them come back to show you what's on the plan. That's why they came back. And and to come back, I thought they were coming back for a soil moving. And I'm going to put this out there. If all you're doing is putting a line on the plan and you approve that, you have 2 conforming lots. Then they have to go get building permits, so on and so forth. In order to get the building permit, they need a soil moving permit. It's at my discretion whether or not I feel comfortable to approve it or send it back to this board, which, quite frankly, with a steep slope and X amount of cubic yards of fill and ripping up the street that we paved, they're going to come back to this board. So you can approve the line only to push the can or kick it down the street to bring it back to the board anyway to look at all of these things. That's all I'm saying. Because again, that's it. That's the main thing. And quite frankly, we weren't present when they did the soils. The letter that was submitted says 0.6 inches per hour, which is nothing. And if it doesn't work, you have people downhill that are going to be affected. And we had residents here at the last meeting saying they're concerned, and a lot of the board members are concerned. And quite frankly, if it doesn't work, the mayor's phone's going to ring, the councilman's phone's going to ring, and then you know who else's phone, if I'm still here, then my phone rings and says, now, how do we fix this? So
Right,
we don't
but-
want to be
but
in
Mr.
that
Costa,
position.
you're not going to approve it unless all of the information is satisfactory to you.
And it's coming back to this board, no question.
All right, but
And
again.
and I don't want to play, I don't want to play a
but you're the
Philadelphia
one-
attorney.
You're the one they're gonna
Many years
rely
ago,
on.
there was a case, Janovic versus Woodcliff Lake. I happened to be involved. Greg Meese was the attorney. You guys can do that through the soil movement. You can look at everything through the soil movement. No question about it.
That's definite, Mr. Costa, I agree with you, but that's not what the application is tonight. And there's been plenty of testimony saying that
But
they
then I don't
agree.
understand why we're doing, if this was denied, if it was denied because of a line down a plan and they came back to show stuff that you're saying it isn't on it tonight, but how do you get over res judicata? How do you go forward and approve the plan you denied? There's no change there.
Mr. Chairman,
maybe I'm missing
point of information, Mr. Chairman.
It wasn't denied.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pepper.
just, I think we're getting into very murky waters here, and it's getting more confusing than less. My recollection, and we have minutes that we approved in the past for the last time this was before the board, but my recollection matches up with Ms. Steinley's statement that the last, and even what Mr. Costa just said a moment ago, that previously this project was put before the board as simply a subdivision. And the board was not comfortable with that because people on the board were saying that we need to know what you plan to put on this property, what you plan, we need more details. We're not just going to approve a line. So the applicant has come back now with this new you know, what they first called a site plan, then they agreed to amend it because it's not the final version of a site plan, and we're not voting on the site plan. My understanding is that the whole purpose of all the details that we've been going through and that what the applicant has presented us with tonight are simply before us because the last time the proposal was too bare bones for the board. There wasn't enough detail, there wasn't enough meat on the bones. But the application is still just a subdivision application. It's just drawing a line. But now we have a lot more detail to give us an idea, a general picture of what the applicant is envisioning. Now, we are not voting on that vision. That vision still has to go through all the review processes that Mr. Costa and others have referenced. But tonight, we're simply taking that information from the applicant as additional details that will allow us to decide whether we are comfortable with drawing the line and approving the subdivision. So I think that conforms to what Ms. Steinle said. And it's, you know, to me, it's just a subdivision application. We're not approving anything related to drainage, construction, coverage, site coverage, anything like that, because all of that has to still go through the vetting process. And if necessary, it still has to come back to us.
I was not present at the October 9th meeting, so I won't make any comment on that. But what I'm hearing, I don't disagree with you based on the application. This is for subdivision only.
And I think just for accuracy's sake, it wasn't denied. We just allowed them to come back with more detail. We didn't deny it when they were here.
Well,
The application was denied,
Oh, it was?
and
Okay.
Mr. Barrett requested reconsideration, which is permitted.
I stand corrected.
As a procedural matter, it was denied. Mr. Merman, before I move on, any further
Yes,
comments from you?
Yes, of course. I have grave doubts about approving as a subdivision all these details that's on the site plan or whatever you want to call it, with the chambers and everything else. And let me start telling you where my engineering concerns are. Mr. Costa's letter, which was number 2 revision, states that approximately 30 trees are about throughout the without the current throughout the current site, and it appears that they're going to be removed. Well, that tells me that you're going to go out there with your equipment, strip the site totally clear, which is now barren, which now subject to runoff and soils flowing and all during your construction operation. I would like to see some kind of temporary plan where you're going to take all that construct runoff and put it into some kind of a holding basin or what have you. Likewise, all of that right now, you're probably going to put a silt fence along that property line to the west there, and that's not going to hold any soil coming down that bare slope. You need to do some provisions on that, and I'm not comfortable calling it a site plan approval with all these details that I know are going to change. Likewise, that was my main concern. I don't want to see water flowing onto the people to the west during construction, including the associated mud and everything else. I think I need more information. If you're going to start showing me details of chambers and everything, you've got to carry them out throughout the construction sequence. And that's the summation of my concerns.
Okay.
And basically, I still feel, why can't we do and I know you've gone around and around, simple dividing of the property, and then we'll go forward from there. So you can argue about all you want about this being a subdivision, but you call it a subdivision, you got a heck of a lot of details, half of which you need are probably not going to work in reality during construction.
Well, again, Mr. Murray, I think just to reiterate, I think the intention here was not to show was more of a conceptual possibility of what might be shown with the subdivided property,
You're
not the
willing us
subdivision
into it.
itself. I think we have enough to understand what the subdivision aspect of this application is to create two compliant lots. And I think that's where our analysis needs to.
Well, then
needs to
let's
end at
put
this
a
point.
note. Let's put a note on your drawing in big bold letters and say that it's not only for subdivision purposes, and the details that you're showing are meaningless.
Mr. Merman, do you have the plan that's just titled minor subdivision that was dated October 3rd?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
And so you're saying that that has too much detail to be considered just a,
Yeah, so are we voting on this minor subdivision, on this minor subdivision plan that you're referencing to? All it does is show the new, is that what we're voting on?
That's what we're voting on this evening. The
And
site plan
we're
is,
not, we're not referencing any waivers of sidewalk installations of sidewalks or what
No.
have you?
all of that is to be captured in the review process, because the subdivision application does not have us taking all of those items into account.
So
We're not taking
your-
action on those this evening.
Your motion tonight would be to vote the acceptance of this minor subdivision plan only?
Correct.
Then why are we having all this other discussion?
We would ask the same question, Mr.
Fair.
Merman. We're only doing what you guys told us to do. We've
Fair.
done it. Now you tell us
Fair.
we didn't want it.
I'm-
I'm perplexed.
I'm not blaming you, Mr. Barrett.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, all right, so whoever makes a motion, the motion should be that we accept this minor subdivision only, period. That's it.
And then we need to submit the soil movement application for Mr. Costa's review and his determination as to what happens with that. That's my understanding.
That would be contained as a condition within the resolution approving it. The
Of course.
subdivision.
and all the other conditions that we discussed tonight can be incorporated because that's what was agreed to tonight.
No
And
problem.
that's what was agreed to tonight, but we're only approving the subdivision, but they agreed to when they go to the borough, they're gonna follow all those recommendations.
I'm in favor of only approving this minor subdivision tonight,
Okay,
period.
fair enough. Thank you,
And-
sir.
I have a clarification question.
Mr. Kanigo?
Would all those points that we're taking note of that are not actually part of the vote, would they apply to somebody if this particular owner now decides to sell the two properties and let somebody else develop it? Would the new
Yes.
owner still be bound by whatever was agreed by this particular owner?
In the subdivision, so the way the subdivision is recorded is Mr. Barrett said it will be done by deed. That has to be approved by the board. I review the deeds for the subdivisions and I always incorporate language in the deeds that the owners of the property and all of their successors, heirs, assigns have to comply with the terms of the resolution that authorize the subdivision. So they would be, once they get the deed to their lot, they would have reference to this specific resolution on the property.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Pfeffer?
We couldn't we, this is a question, approve the application, but also make it subject to all the points that were agreed to tonight? Could we not do that?
No.
So that the points that were agreed to tonight are not just sort of suggestions for later on, but actually is part of the approval of the subdivision.
So as conditions of the subdivision approval, in other words, Ms. Steinle, is that something that's procedurally permissible?
I think that's what Mr. Barrett was alluding to this whole time, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I would suggest that we do that.
So I think there's yeah, I think there was agreement on that point. Okay. Okay, at this
I'm
point,
for, I'm for only approving the minor subdivision, period. If you want to
That's-
put a note on there to reference the meeting, or what for any future purchases, that's fine. But I'm not approving, that I developed the subdivision like we showed on your site plan.
right, that's not part of the application, correct?
Then why reference it?
I believe it was just put in for informational purposes only. Okay, let's open to the public at this time for comment on this application. I'll look for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think I've got Councilman Glass on a first and Mr. Cray on a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstained? All right, at this time, we are now open for public comment on this application only. And we ask that your comments be limited to the subject matter of the application and at a time limit of 2 minutes. I do believe we have some
Yes,
people in the audience.
we do have someone with their hand raised, Joe Manzelli. If you please state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me? Making sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Name is Joe Manzelli, 789 6th Avenue in River Edge. I guess a comment, Mr. Michael, like you guys have said, I was at the last meeting as well. If these are two conforming lots, it's just a simple subdivision, you guys should approve it. And the other comment is, if he decided not to subdivide this and knock the house down and redo it, he'd have to go through all this anyway, as far as the soil removal and all that kind of testing and all too. So like you said, it seems like you're putting the horse before the cart. And then my second comment is, hopefully this is what's being proposed is just the subdivision, because if you start to say about sidewalks, 6th Avenue, along the entire 6th Avenue has no sidewalks, and neither does Webb. And honestly, it's a pretty, I live here, obviously, it's a pretty quiet neighborhood and a street. By putting the sidewalks in there too, I think you'd have more drainage issues. So that's just my own 2 cents. I'm not an engineer, but that's my own 2 cents. It's a safe thing, and you'd be ruining a lot of people's landscaping and stuff too by trying to put sidewalks in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manzelli.
Oh, did you have another question? Okay,
No.
thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Comment on this application?
All right, we do have another member. So you're on your phone. The last 4 digits are 9029. You have to press *6 on your telephone keypad. Okay, please state your
Hi,
name and address for the record. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Wayne Murphy, 300 Webb Avenue. I live 2 doors down up the street, actually. And I agree with the gentleman that just spoke on 6th. It is a quiet area, and I would be opposed to sidewalks myself. So I just hope you take that into consideration later on. That's the last thing we want. I'm technically not opposed to the subdivision. I'm concerned about the size of the houses, and I'm also concerned about the runoff that's going to happen down there, but that's for the people down below. And actually, the fellow next door on 6th Avenue, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some water too. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard on this application? Okay, at this time, I'll look for a motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mullins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? Okay, we are now closed to the public for comment on this application. Any further questions or comments from the board? There being none, I will look for a motion on the application, please.
I move that we approve the application for subdivision, and make a general note that the, owner has agreed to participate in addressing the concerns that were brought up in the meeting tonight.
Second.
One moment.
Okay. We have a motion for Mr. Cray and a second for Mr. Pfeffer.
Okay, so explain the motion to me. Are we we're voting for a subdivision and you're
Yes.
including all the prior comments about drainage and everything?
No,
So-
I suggested that we approve the subdivision and just note that the owner has indicated he would participate in addressing all of those concerns that were discussed.
Okay, that's fine, period. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a first, so we have Mr. Cray's motion and Mr. Pfeffer's the second.
All right, I'll do the roll. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes,
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
All right. Moving on, our last item on the agenda this evening under new business, the applicant, is, before we get started, Ms. Boland,
Yep.
I believe you are within 200 feet, so
Yes.
you're going to be recused, so we bid you good night and thank you for
Okay.
everything thus far.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
good
Eileen.
night.
Not Eileen.
Okay. Next application is Bedros and Liza Yasayan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The property is at 823 Bogert Road. This is block 118, lot 10. The application is seeking approval for a proposed deck in the rear yard. I believe the applicant is here this evening. Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Ms. Stein?
All right, I will swear you both in. If you please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And could you please both state your name and your address for the record?
Go ahead, Pedro.
Bedros Yasayan, 823 Bogert Road, River Edge.
Thank you.
Lisa Yasayan, 823 Bogart Road, River Edge.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like you have a professional with you this evening?
Yes, our architect, Mrs. Linda Del Novo.
Okay, good evening.
evening.
Maybe Steinley, maybe we'll swear her in too.
Yep, I will swear you in as well. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Linda Del Noble, that's capital DEL, capital NOBILE. My address is 192 3rd Avenue, Unit 1A, Westwood, New Jersey.
Okay, and could you provide the board with some background on your experience and licensure?
Yes, I have been licensed since 1986. So 38 years I've been practicing. Since 95, I've been in my own business. I have appeared before many boards in Bergen County over the last few decades. I don't think I've ever been in River Edge, but most other Bergen County municipalities, Emerson, Oradell, Park Ridge, Westwood, Emerson, I think I said Emerson, Closter, Crestgill.
Okay. Any questions from the board on qualifications? Okay, thank you. For the applicant, if you would, for the benefit of the board, if you could give us a statement and summary on what it is you're looking for from us this evening in terms of the installation of the deck, the aesthetics of it, and so forth.
Chairman, may I make some comments first?
Yes.
Thank you. This review was done back a while ago, and it was in the transition period of the amendments to the zoning ordinances. So some of these issues have been corrected. I did it was kind of a short period of time because the applicant brought it to our attention, and I did the review yesterday and sent it out today. So the board probably doesn't have that. I sent it to Ed, in a short period of time. But basically what it is the lot coverage is compliant in the respects that one, the driveway is not included in impervious coverage from the front of the house to the front of the detached garage. So that would fall into a compliant area, and the issue would be basically also the percentage given for a deck, which is 75% reduced. So that would also reduce the lot coverage. So at this point, the lot coverage is in compliance. The only issue now that stands is building coverage. Building coverage did not change in the amended ordinances. So therefore, they are over on their lot on building coverage. I'm sorry. It's if the applicant wants to take it from there, they can. But that's basically the gist of this new revised zoning review that I sent out.
So we're only one variance is up for consideration this evening at this point.
That is correct, Chairman.
Okay. Okay. With that, I'd ask if you would go ahead and provide, as I said before, a summary of your intentions for installation of the deck and some of the aesthetics with it, please.
Sure. We've been in River Edge for 7 years now, and we live in a house where we share a driveway with our neighbor. We don't have any backyard space to enjoy the summers or to just sit outside. The house was last renovated in 1977, so it needs a little bit of modification, especially the kitchen. So while renovating the kitchen, we wanted to add also a deck so we can enjoy the summers outside and not disturb our neighbors so that they can use the driveway as they wish. Even the garages are very close to each other. So if we do in front of the garage, we can't because it's very close and we'll be disturbing them. So we do need a space to enjoy the outside in River Edge.
Okay.
Anything?
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Depkin, I'll start with you, if I could. Anything further to add?
Yes, so the building coverage comes to 26.6%, which is 107.3 square feet over, which is over by 1.6%. That is basically what they are requesting. That's basically the information that I have.
Okay. Mr. Barons?
I have nothing to add beyond what Mr. Depkin has provided.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Costa?
No issues with this from Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me turn to the board at this point. Mr. Gibbons, I'll open with you if I may.
No, nothing really. It seems like they're being modest in what they're doing, and it's a minor change, so I have no issue with it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Craig?
Yeah, feel the same way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pfeffer?
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kanigo?
Seems like a reasonable application. Thank you. No comments.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, no questions. I'm good.
Okay, Councilman?
I don't have any concerns. I just have a question for clarification. So I think we have in the new ordinance, kind of a discount for a deck if it's not a solid surface. How's that being figured into the calculus here?
Well, it's figured into the impervious coverage, which is considered lot coverage. There was no reduction in building coverage. There was no amendment to the building coverage section with the 25%. So the building coverage is calculated and the deck is calculated as building coverage. There's no reduction because it's not considered impervious drainage. It's just a structure. So the structure is the calculations for building coverage.
So thanks, Steve. So the 42.7, that's with the discount.
No.
That's lot coverage. That's impervious coverage.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Merman?
Yes. Let me understand this. The lot coverage exceeds the 25% by would now be 26.6. Is that correct?
It was labeled as building coverage, so there wasn't any confusion between lot coverage and what was it called? Improved lot coverage.
Okay.
So now it's calculated as building coverage, which is just the structures, and then lot coverage, which is the structure plus impervious material.
So
on the side.
Are we saying that there is no variance required for lot coverage? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I can cross that out. And I do want to note that this is a undersized lot where 7,500 is required, and this lot has 6,732 square feet. And let's go to the improved lot coverage. Give me those revised numbers.
Would you like
The
So
improved
the lot coverage, Mr. Merman, we changed the terminology to lot coverage and building coverage.
Okay.
So the lot coverage, or as you're referring it to, the improved lot coverage, that complies.
I got that. What about improved lot coverage?
As I said, that complies.
That complies. So are we saying there is no variance here?
No, that building coverage is the
Okay.
overage.
Building coverage is overage. By how much?
1.6% or
1.6.
107.3 square feet.
Okay. So, and that requires a variance.
Correct.
All right. So what I'm saying is that 1.6% on a substandard lot is de minimis, really. Because the way I look at it, I guess if you ratio it out, it would still be within the guidelines, even though the numbers work that way. All right. So if somebody was to make a motion for approval, what category would they be motioning?
They would be, okay, I'm sorry.
It would be for the building coverage variance.
Building coverage variance. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Very good.
all right. Thank you, sir.
Again, it's the minutes. All right.
All right. I have no question. Ms. Styling?
I have a couple questions just for the architect. If you could provide just some testimony on the architectural and aesthetic features of the deck and if there's any landscaping or anything proposed.
Sure. Do you want me to share my screen to show put up the survey?
You
and the
could-
site plan?
Sure, you can do that.
Let's see, share. Not sure it's sharing. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay. I guess you can all see that. So,
Yes.
so off to the left is the site plan. And what we are doing here, we have a two-story brick house. We have a garage in the back corner, and we're going off the rear of the main house with a deck. You can kind of see that it's going over like an area where there is a retaining wall because this site slopes quite a bit to the back and then it just drops down even a little bit more. To the right, you can see that it's very close to the property line, the house, and it's a shared driveway because I believe both of these houses are pretty close to the property line. So they have a 10-foot shared driveway down the center, and then they go off each into their own garages. And then right now, if we look over, would you like me to go through all the zoning information?
No, just some details, just
Okay.
I want some testimony about what is the aesthetic features and if there's anything about the lot that makes this necessary, this variant.
Yes, let me go through the first, I guess, the floor plan. If we look at the floor plan, you can see we're doing some modifications to the house as well. We're making a larger kitchen. We're making what was a tiny itty bitty powder room into a bathroom that has a shower, and we're just reworking that space. Right now, if you can see over all the way to the right-hand side of the plan, there is a set of steps, four steps down, then you come to a landing, and then you go down further to the basement. Well, on this landing is where you now are going out to, they're outside and how they enter into the rear yard, which is right next to the driveway. And then you have to go down this little pathway, which is adjacent to the driveway and to the backyard. So this modification and these alterations, it was very important to get some access without having to go by this driveway and around the side of the house, down steps, etc., and have some nice outdoor space to be able to congregate. So that was the main purpose. It's really on the floor, on the elevation here, you can see it's a nondescript deck. It's a basic deck. It's going to be Trex decking. And at this point, we have not talked about doing any landscaping. It's in the back of the house. It's going to be an open, open jointed deck so that the water can go through, and we're not going to be affecting anything on the site. So that's really the project. We think that we have hardship because we have a undersized lot. It's undersized in the width and it's undersized in the lot area. So that's really, if we were not undersized, we wouldn't be here. We also think that it's not just a hardship, you also have the topography to deal with. It really slopes down in the back, so it's very difficult, and you can kind of see that with the elevation, that it's about a half a level up from the ground, and then it keeps sloping down further, the backyard. So it'll be very difficult to do any other kind of a outdoor space there because you'd have to be going down like a half a level. But there's also, we don't feel like there's any other planning alternatives either, and that the benefits outweigh the detriments, because the only other thing that you could do is put something on grade, but it would really be then affecting grades. And as we're talking about all the runoffs and everything else that you're going to get with hard surfaces, this is like the perfect kind of way to deal with the property and the runoff and everything else. It also, I know that in the master plan, they were talking about, and that's what you guys just did, in town, you had added the rear yard amenities, a percentage there, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just have some outdoor space. We sized it accordingly so that they could have like a table out there, they could have a couple of chairs maybe, and a barbecue, and that's it, and have access to their yard. So we feel like it does conform to the goals and objectives of your master plan. It blends with the neighborhood, and it allows the Yessian family to be able to stay in this house and enjoy their yard. So I guess that's about, I hope I answered all your questions.
Yep, you did. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Okay, at this time, I'll look for a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
first, Mr. Glass, I'm sorry, Councilman Glass, so a second.
Second.
Mr. Gibbons, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? Ms. Steinle, I don't see anybody in the audience unless you do.
No, it doesn't look like there's anyone anymore.
Okay, with that, I will look for a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cray. I have a second. Councilman, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? We're now closed to the public for comment on this application. At this time, if there's no further comments or questions from the board or our professionals, I'll look for a motion on the application, please.
Mr. Chairman, may I offer a motion, please?
Please do, Mr. Merman.
Regarding Boulder Road, Lot 10, Block 118 in River Edge, that the drawing submitted entitled Proposed Deck Addition and Interior Alteration be approved by the Land Use Board, noting that the building coverage, which normally is 25%, will result in a number of 22.8, which is existing, and the actual after construction will be 26.1, and the resulting differential is de minimis, and it is noted that the lot area is substandard at 6723 square feet, that the board approved that and include the usual general requirements that are issued by Casa Engineering. I think that's it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gibbons with the second. Thank you, sir.
My only comment is that the number for the building lot coverage is 26.6%, not 26.1.
No, I erred. It is, I got it written down as 26.6. Okay, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so with that one change, the motion and from Mr. Merman and a second from Mr. Gibbons.
All right, I'll take the roll. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Pfeffer,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Knigo,
Yes.
Councilman Glass,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay,
Great.
Enjoy your improvement.
Thank
good
you
luck.
very
Enjoy your improvement.
Thank you.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, we have reached the end of our agenda this evening. Nothing further. I will look for a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
First from Councilman Glass, second from Mr. Pfeffer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? We stand adjourned at 9:54 PM.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.